Alright, let's just get this over with. After Doom 64's release, the series went on its first official hiatus. A new game wouldn't start developing for a good while. That is until the year 2000 when ID Software would finally start development on what seemed to be like a remake of Doom, led by Tim Willits, the co-owner of ID Software. They wanted to make this game to bring the Doom IP to newer technology, and wanted to show off what the studio was capable of making with newer hardware. There was actually quite a bit of controversy and closed doors on whether remaking Doom was a good idea or not, which I won't get into in this video as multiple people have already talked about it, so if you're interested, then you can probably just Google it. So, with an agreement in place, the team got to work with a development time of 4 years. And well, what was the result of this 4 years of work? Well, on October 4th, 2004, ID Software released their brand new game, Doom 3. Ugh. Man, do I wish this game was as good as the menu music. So, Doom 3. This is a game I had zero expectations for when I went into it for the first time. I had seen no gameplay of it prior to launching it on my console, and honestly, I'm not so sure if that was a mistake or not, because this game is vastly different from the rest of the games that we've covered so far. It's so different, in fact, that it doesn't even feel like a Doom game. But why doesn't it feel like one? What should a Doom game strive to be? And how does this game get it so wrong? Well, that's what we're going to find out today and much more, as we dive into this demon-infested UAC facility. Now, just to clarify that I am playing this game on the PS5, meaning that I am not playing the BFG version of this game, which I know makes some changes, but I will not be reviewing that version. This will solely be based off of the normal game how it was released on PSN. I will also be playing one of the DLCs as well, called Resurrection of Evil. So with that out of the way, join me as I dissect and review the 2004 horror-like shooter, Doom 3. So despite what the title of the game might make you think, Doom 3 does not have anything to do with the previous 3 games in terms of the story and plot. In fact, it's in its own separate universe, and is not canon to those games at all. And I honestly hate this. Now riddle me this. Why is this game called Doom 3? Calling it Doom 3 implies that it is a sequel or at least somewhat connected to the previous games, yet it has nothing to do with those games in the slightest. Now, I'm not saying that every sequel has to be connected to its predecessors in some way, but unless you're a franchise like Final Fantasy where it's well established that each numbered game is in its own continuity and world, I'd expect it to at least take place in the same universe. But it doesn't. Hell, even Black Ops 3 had the decency to at least mention what happens in the previous 2 games a few times. I know it's just a title and all, but I think it matters because it sets up the wrong expectations. When I look at a piece of media that clearly shows to be a sequel of some sort, I expect it to have some relation to earlier pieces of media under the same name. So yes, I think it's stupid that the game is called Doom 3. Jeez, about 4 minutes in now, I guess, and I'm already being negative. This is going to be a long video, isn't it? Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the game actually does have a hefty amount of story and plot this time, and it actually conveys it to you throughout the game unlike previous titles. This is a step in the right direction. An actual story to follow while you play the game? That's a first for this series. So let's dig into this plot. I'm interested to see how it unfolds.
I'm here because there seems to be some very serious problems.
Oh, really? Do I need to remind you of the groundbreaking work that we're doing here?
No, but I've been authorized by the board to look at everything.
The board authorized you? The board doesn't know the first thing about science. All they want is something to make them more money, some product. Don't worry, they'll get their product.
Oh my. So, yeah, this story kinda sucks. No scratch that, it does suck. So I think the plot of this game goes as follows. The year is 2145. And the UAC, a large corporate entity in this universe, has planted their facilities on the surface of Mars. They conducted all types of research into weaponry, teleportation, and well, you can probably see where this is going. Yeah, they open a portal from hell which causes catastrophic devastation on the facility, leaving our silent protagonist who just got here as an intern to fight back against the demons and close the portal for good. Now, the premise itself isn't that bad, it's fine. It merely just feels like a retelling of Doom 1's premise, but it's nothing really special. My main issues, however, stem from two things: the characters and the execution of certain story beats. The characters are so lame, they are very forgettable, and add pretty much nothing to the plot besides the villain, Dr. Malcolm Petruger, who pretty much works with the armies of hell to bring devastation upon humanity. He's a weak villain, he barely really does anything until near the end of the game, he's forgettable as all hell, like I completely forgot about his existence except for the moments in the game where he just randomly taunts you with empty threats. Like, bro, you're not intimidating, you're just making a fool of yourself, especially with the weak dialogue he and everyone else has in this game. Man, am I glad they decided to stick with the silent protagonist for this one. Now I'll admit, the game has a pretty strong opening segment, where you walk around, talk to some NPCs, which are all forgettable and dumb by the way, and observe some of the ongoings happening in the facility. This game has a lot of nice detail in its environments, and this segment really makes the setting feel more alive, like you're actually part of the workforce that's happening around you. It's great. Then after, you get sent on your first task. This is around the time the invasion starts, and again, it's a pretty good scene all around and really makes the demons feel pretty threatening. Going through the now breaking down facility, trying to survive the onslaught, hearing the screams of your fellow comrades and the comms as they get ravaged, it actually makes the events that occur feel kinda haunting. Too bad that after this, the game takes a complete nosedive in terms of setting and story. Besides the beginning, nothing that happens in the story adds to anything whatsoever. Most of the cutscenes just consist of unnecessary expository dialogue as the camera shifts out of the view of your character and into the nearby room the conversation is happening in. I honestly really don't understand why Dr. Petruger is even a villain. He serves literally nothing and does like one thing throughout the entire game. You can literally cut him out of this game's plot and just have it be about the Marine versus the demons, and it would literally change nothing. In general, the story and characters are just extremely dull, making the unskippable cutscenes just boring to sit through, because I just don't really care for what's happening here. All in all, the story is just shallow. It makes me wonder why they even included one here in the first place. I would have been completely fine if they just went the route of the previous games went and just put their full focus on the gameplay. Speaking of the gameplay, let's get into that, shall we? So, Doom 3 kinda plays similar to the previous titles, question mark? And I emphasize on kinda. Like, you pretty much do the same things like shooting demons while traversing through the facility, but there's a lot, and I mean a lot, that has either been heavily altered or just straight up removed. So let's get into that stuff. So most guns pretty much make a return, and they act somewhat the same they usually do, except the weapons in this game are just so weak and don't feel nearly as satisfying to use. You also have to reload them now, which I absolutely hate the concept of in this game. It also just completely breaks the proper pacing certain fights could have had. Plus, it makes the guns worse too. Like, the shotgun is so terrible in this game. You have to be at point blank range to get any sort of mileage out of it, and even then, it still takes 2 shots to kill something as simple as an imp. In previous games, the shotgun was good at most ranges, which yeah, it wasn't really realistic, but who cares? It was much more fun to use. I don't care about realism in games. Games should not strive to be realistic unless your game revolves around that concept. So the fact that the shotgun is so pathetic in this game makes me sad. It's a Doom game. If your shotgun sucks, then I don't want it. But you might be wondering about the super shotgun. Well, it's not in this game.
You serious?
Yup, they removed the best gun in the series. Why? What was wrong with it? I mean, yeah, it made most fights in previous games pretty easy, but I feel like out of those titles, this game needed it the most. Ugh, such a disappointment, man. Anyway, there is a new gun you get pretty early on, which is the submachine gun. This gun kinda sucks too, but it's definitely better than the shotgun, so it's pretty okay, I guess. Can I just say that a lot of these guns also look dull and aren't appealing at all. Half of them just look like discount Halo weapons, especially the SMG. So next up is the chain gun, which, unsurprisingly, is also crap in this game. In fact, I can barely even tell the time to kill difference between this and the SMG. You also barely get ammo for it for a majority of the game. I went a decent chunk of the game with no ammo for it, which is just dumb. Now, the plasma rifle is honestly the only gun that is actually pretty okay in this game, although that isn't really saying much. Too bad the plasma rifle looks and feels like garbage in this game. Like, what happened to the satisfying array of energy shots you dispersed from the thing in the previous games? Now it just feels completely shallow. Now the rocket launcher. Well, it's fine, I guess. It's definitely not as useful as it once was, but it still gets the job done, so it's passable. Oh no, I am not ready to see what they did to the BFG 9000 in this game. Okay, so the BFG works a little differently in this game. It mainly acts the same, but when you shoot a big ball of energy, it now releases these tendrils that reach out toward any enemy and do a set amount of damage per second. Honestly, the BFG is probably the only good firing weapon in this game, but it becomes pretty short-lived since your first mandatory encounter with it is near the end of the game, unless you found it from a secret or an earlier level, but I will talk about the secrets later. Now, you might have noticed that how I said the BFG was the best firing weapon. Well, that's because the chainsaw returns, and this thing is literally the best weapon in the game. Like, hello? You are telling me that what was arguably the worst weapon in the previous games is now the only viable option when dealing with 90% of the demons in this game? Is this a joke? I'm not kidding when I say this thing is strong either. It really is. In fact, I used it for a majority of the game after I acquired it. The only downside this thing has is that you gotta get up close and personal and would probably end up taking a bit of damage, but at least not as much damage as you were to take trying to shoot these guys with a pathetic array of weapons that do very little damage. Plus, having to deal with the obnoxious reload times. If your best weapon in your Doom game is a chainsaw, then I'm sorry, but you've done something terribly wrong. That is it in terms of the main guns, but there is a few more things I need to discuss. One new thing added to your arsenal are hand grenades, which are okay, I guess. I didn't really use them as much, but they weren't terrible. There's also one new mechanic that unlocks after the health segment. This mechanic is the Soul Cube, which kinda acts like a health siphon insta-kill of some sort. Basically, you kill enough demons to charge the Soul Cube, then when it's ready, you can launch it at the closest enemy, instantly killing them and refilling your health in the process. I actually like this mechanic. For once, it actually gets you to think when to use the thing. Like, if you're low on health or there's a tougher enemy on the field. Too bad you only get to use it during the last 20% of the game. Ugh. Overall, the weapons are just lackluster, pack no punch, and just don't feel good to use. Which is a big issue considering this game revolves around them so much. If you don't have good feeling weapons in your first-person shooter game, then you don't have a good first-person shooter game. But of course, there is more to this game than just the shooter aspect of it. You can't really have a shooter without the levels and the enemies, so let's get into that, I guess. So the levels are, yeah. So the game takes place at the UAC facility that was built on Mars, and although there is a lot of attention to detail in some of these areas, this set piece is the environment you are in for a good 80% of the game. It gets so tiring, and I mean so tiring, to see these gray walls and dimly lit rooms over and over again. No room really feels distinct from each other, and all just mesh together poorly. A lot of the time, I found myself genuinely getting lost, not because the level design actually has some intricacy, but because it all looks the same. So, why don't I just use the map, you may ask? Well, good question. There is no map. Yep, this game for some reason does not have a map, which is very stupid, because this game could have really benefited from one. Let's also not forget how these levels have a lot of areas surrounded in darkness, causing just more confusion when trying to traverse the dull-looking levels. This is to increase the horror aesthetic the game goes for, but I will talk about that much later. Oh, but good thing they added a flashlight, right? Well, I don't mind the flashlight too much. I have one problem with it, which has to do with the stupid flashlight meter. For some reason, if you use the flashlight for too long, it'll go out and refill automatically. What's the point of this crap? It's not like you need to find batteries or something to recharge it. No, it just recharges at any point if you aren't using it, and it really only takes like 10 seconds or so, I would say. This is so worthless. What is the point of having this system if it comes back so damn quickly? It's just unnecessary, and it's a bit annoying. So despite the bland and dull-looking facility you travel through, there are two other major set pieces in the game, Hell and the Caverns. Hell looks alright, if not a bit samey and a bit too dark at times, and the Caverns look okay as well, but only last like 3 levels. Same with Hell, but instead Hell only lasts like 1 level, not counting when you go to it right before the final boss. Wow, all that build-up just to be in Hell for a total of 30 minutes max in the game. How great. Again, this game looks great for its time, but the actual set pieces have nothing to show for it in this game. At least in Doom 64, they actually took advantage of the new graphical enhancements by putting great use on the color palette and detail, making levels and rooms feel distinct from one another. In Doom 3, it is literally the opposite of this, and it just sucks to look at. What a waste of a good graphical engine. So, how are the actual levels themselves? Well, they are levels alright. So remember all the stuff I said about the game having intricate level design that encourages exploring for secrets, finding switches and keycards to open up new areas, and all in all had a good variety of demon killing and puzzle solving? Well, let's take all of those essential fundamentals of a Doom game and throw it in the bin. Because the level design has nowhere near as much thought and effort put into them compared to previous titles. There are no keycards to collect, no puzzles to really solve, and no intricacy whatsoever. There are occasional button presses you do, but they require very minimal effort to find. Well, what about the secrets? They do exist, but they suck and take no effort to find. Most secrets just come down to finding a vent and crawling through it, or just hidden around some corners or something. And that is mostly it. And that is because the level design is just so linear. There is no room to put actually well thought out secrets in these levels because the type of design the levels are going for does not encourage exploration in the slightest. And that is a major, major downside. Exploring these levels was a key component to making a Doom game in my eyes. It was part of the fun other than the demon slaying you do, so the fact that it just feels completely absent in this game actually upsets me. Because now this game just feels like a linear, uninspired walking simulator. The secrets don't even feel rewarding at all. All you typically get is just more useless ammo and health packs. Now, to be honest, the secrets aren't entirely bad. Like, for example, you can find these supply safe things throughout the game, which has a code you can input to get some extra goodies. You get these codes by going into your PDA and either listening to audio logs or reading emails of other now presumed dead comrades that were in the facility. Now, I like the idea of going through the emails and hoping you find the proper person's PDA to find the code and insert it in, but what I don't like is having to sit through boring audio logs just for them to say the code at the end for you to use. No one wants to sit around and wait to hear those fabled 3 digits just for a bit more ammo, and like the other secrets in this game, there isn't much you're gonna get from these either. You see, the thing that made the secrets in the previous game so rewarding was that you would not only get ammo and health packs, but you'd also get some certain power-ups like a supercharge or a megasphere, and you could also get a full replenish on armor. Oh wait, I completely forgot about the armor in Doom 3. Yeah, armor is a thing in this game, and you do get some from some of these secrets. Too bad armor feels basically worthless because there would legit never be a point where you actually run out of armor, making it feel non-existent since you always have it on you. In fact, 9 times out of 10 you'll probably die first before your armor even depletes. Because of this, you're never going to feel an actual difference between not having armor and having it, which made me forget that armor was even a thing. Now, what about the power-ups? Haha, that's very funny. No power-up in this game makes a return from previous titles, meaning no supercharge, no megasphere, no invulnerability. You get the gist. Wait, actually no, I am wrong. There actually is a power-up in this game. Of course I'm forgetting about Berserk, aka probably the worst power-up from the previous games. Now admittedly, Berserk is actually alright in this game, as you not only can't take damage, but you get a burst of speed and everything dies in just one punch. However, you wanna know how many times this power-up shows up? Twice. Yep, twice. Once a bit later past the beginning segment, and once during the Hell segment. That's it. So honestly, you can barely even count it as a recurring power-up. Why? Why is it like this? Power-ups added a lot to the secrets and enemy encounters in the previous titles. I mean, yeah, they made some fights fairly easy, but it gave you an incentive to actually search for some of these secrets or to figure out how to get a certain power-up from another part of the level. So with all this in mind, it's safe to say that the exploration part of the game is basically non-existent, making the levels just feel like hallways with a bit of room to cover all around. One thing I haven't mentioned that much about this game is the horror aspect of it, which actually plays a substantial role in making the level design. A lot of the level design seems to cater toward trying to scare the player rather than focusing on making them as big and dynamic as in the previous games. There will be multiple moments where the game shows you a creepy red tinted version of the room you walked into. Ooh, spooky. This just purposely breaks the pacing of the game as you are just randomly put into a hall to look at a different version of the room for a few seconds. It gets kind of annoying after a while. Like, just watch this scene and tell me if it scares you and makes you feel anything whatsoever. So, did it scare you? No? Yeah, I thought so. Moments like this are just riddled throughout the game, and it all the more contributes to why this game is such a slog to get through. Doom 64 did the horror aesthetic near perfectly. That game genuinely had a haunting and unsettling vibe throughout, whereas in this game, the attempt to inject the horrific setting just falls flat on its face, and ends up hurting the game as a result. Overall, none of the level design in this game is interesting, causing a majority of it to be a bore fest throughout. The game is just littered with long hallways with little to no reason to explore your surroundings, and overall is definitely the weakest part of the game. But we aren't entirely done with the level design yet, as we still have to talk about a major contributor to it. The enemies, of course. Now, considering what I have said about this game so far, I want to play a guessing game with you guys to see if you can predict what I am about to say about these enemies. So, what do you guys think? Is it A, they have garbage designs, B, they are just bad enemies overall, or C, they mostly contribute nothing to the gameplay and add no challenge whatsoever. I'll give you guys about a few hours to decide. Well, it's D, of course, all of the above. Let's talk about enemy designs first. First off, why the hell is literally every enemy a whitish gray color? Now, I'm not trying to come off as racist to fictional demons, but it just makes them as visually unappealing as possible. Now, am I saying that the demons should be visually appealing? I mean, no. But I guess what I mean is that they should feel more distinct from each other and not just blurred together all the time. This same flawed philosophy is also in conjunction to their designs, which are all just a shell of their former selves. Enemies like the Imp, the hit scanners, and the melee attackers all just look similar, making it really hard to differentiate which is which. In previous games, every design actually looked different and unique, with a whole range of different heights and color palette to their designs that really made them stand out in a group of different enemies. This is actually a very important detail because it assisted the player in assessing what was in the room with them, allowing them to make better decisions on what gun to use, what to expect in an encounter, etc. So the fact that this game goes backwards in this regard is seriously a problem. The only enemies that feel somewhat recognizable to these previous designs are the Revenant and the Mancubus, which despite the fact that they still look as gray and dull as the whole game, I can at least look at them and say to myself, oh, that's a Mancubus. Everything else though, not really. Like, let's actually look through some of these enemies, and tell me if you can see any resemblance to their designs. Like this right here is a Pinky, which looks almost nothing like how they looked in the previous games. What about this fella? This is an Imp. Again, looks nothing like the previous games. This is a prominent issue throughout the game, and every enemy just looks too different. But random, why does it matter if they look different if the game is trying to go for a different aesthetic? Well, it matters because there is a later game that does complete redesigns much better, and actually makes them translate into a full 3D space extraordinarily well. But we're not at that game yet, so let's move on to the enemies themselves. Now, some of the returning enemies mostly act the same they usually do. Like the smaller types like the Imp and the hit scanners usually play the same other than the fact that they are much harder to kill because of the garbage weapons the game gives you. Also, one other thing that the Imps can now do is leap at you for no reason. And well, say it with me, it's annoying as all hell. For some dumb reason, the game loves to put these leaping imps right behind closed doors, so that when they open they instantly damage you. This is so unnecessary and very frustrating to deal with. Like, what am I supposed to be? Scared? Oh no, I'm so scared. You sure got me, game. Seriously, this is genuinely a really dumb addition and makes me hate the imp so much. Pinkies are kind of annoying since all they do is charge at you, but you don't encounter them that much during the game, so it's fine I guess. Revenants are pathetic. In Doom 2, they were pretty deadly if you couldn't properly deal with them in time. In this game, nothing a good old chainsaw to the stomach could fix. You also have the... Ugh, is that the Cacodemon? What the hell happened to it? What happened to that goofy but recognizable design from the previous games? Now it just looks generic and ugly looking. But anyway, they are annoying to deal with at the beginning due to your piss poor weapons, but later on they are useless and just serve as flying enemy of the day. Lost Souls are also usually pretty frustrating to deal with, but at least they aren't as bad as they were in Doom 64. I still hate them though. The Mancubus just exists, I guess. They pretty much act the same they usually do. Archviles are unfortunately back, however. They are pretty pathetic and aren't nearly as much of a threat thanks to the chainsaw. Chain Gunners are nowhere near as bad as they used to be either, and Hell Knights look nothing like they used to and are pretty pathetic as well. There are new enemy types, but honestly, I don't care enough to list them because they either just crawl on the ground and swipe at you or something, I don't know. I don't think it matters. One thing all of these enemies have in common though is they really don't make the game much harder. I can say I only died to them a few times, but that is mainly due to their crappy spawn placements, which mainly just consist of them spawning out of thin air. Some come through walls that open up like in previous titles, but for the most part they just kind of teleport in. Lame. They also have ragdoll physics when you kill them, and it is hilarious. Honestly, if you have any sort of ragdoll physics in your game, I will not, and I repeat, will not take it seriously at all. Overall, the enemies just exist and only exist for the purpose of making this game feel like a Doom game, I guess. I mean, it kinda works, but with their lackluster design, not really. Oh, I almost forgot about the toughest and scariest enemy in the game. How could I? I legit almost fainted when I encountered this enemy. Now you wanna know what that enemy is? Now you might really want to brace yourselves for this one. It genuinely is scary, and this enemy is... the Crane Barrel segment. let's talk about some of the bosses. Yeah, this game has bosses, and I will go through the ones that I remember. And I am sorry in advance if I forgot, talking about this game for this long has melted my tiny non-existent brain. So first off, you have this spider lady thing. Pretty weak. All I did was throw a crap ton of hand grenades at her, and she died. Next you have the Hell Guardian, which is actually a pretty fun fight. All you do is get rid of these drone things, then shoot this ball on top of the boss's head. Just keep doing this until he dies. I had a bit of fun with this one. It's clear in what you do, and it's a bit challenging. Next is the tank guy, which is an okay fight, I guess. You just shoot him a bunch until he decides to die. It is cool how he shoots BFG shots at you, though. And finally, we have the Cyber Demon. Yeah, he's the final boss of this game, which I do not like because it literally just exists and adds nothing to the game or the ending. All you do is charge the Soul Cube with demons and just throw it at him a few times, and then bam, he's dead. I didn't actually know you had to use the Soul Cube, by the way, which is why I'm just shooting him in this footage. It's barely even a fight and feels very anticlimactic, because it feels so shoehorned into this game. Why are we fighting the Cyber Demon last? What happened to Dr. Betruger? It seems like they completely forgot about one of the most iconic enemies in Doom, so they decided to just make him the underwhelming final boss to a lackluster game. How cool. Good job, ID Software, you've really outdone yourselves with this one. Okay, what else do I need to talk about here? Yes, the soundtrack. Let me just do a quick Google search on this real quick so I can grab some of the music, and no. Yeah, this game barely has a soundtrack. No, seriously, it's only like 12 minutes long. And the only notable thing here is the menu theme, which I have already showed in my introduction like 25 minutes ago now, and some ambience that is less than a minute long. After that, the rest just consists of little sound cues or something, so, the menu music is pretty good, and, moving on. Now I want to talk a bit about the expansion slash DLC the game got in 2005, Resurrection of Evil. This takes place after the events of Doom 3, and I am not about to go over a story synopsis because I do not care. So what does the expansion have to offer? Well, there are a few new things. First thing you will see is this new gravity gun type weapon. You can use this to pretty much pick up any prop in the map and throw it. You can also pick up enemy projectiles and lost souls. Yes, finally I can give these guys a taste of their own medicine, haha. Well, I really like this thing. It's fun to use, and it's actually pretty useful. We also have the Super Shotgun? Yeah, in a turn of events, they added a Super Shotgun to the game. Yeah, it isn't as useful as it was in previous titles, but hey, at least we finally have a suitable shotgun component to the arsenal. We also have a new mechanic which replaces the Soul Cube. This sting is a weird looking heart thing. It basically slows down time when activated, and you charge it using the corpses of other dead soldiers you find around the area. This thing is pretty cool, however it feels kinda situational and isn't as good as the Soul Cube, but it's alright nonetheless. Now, how is the level design? I didn't really feel a difference here, except it was brighter, I guess. It pretty much was what I expected from this game. There is new enemies, which I won't list, but they, again, don't add much to the game and just exist. Now, how about the bosses? Well, we have this floaty guy which teleports, and well, he is pretty meh. All I did was sit there waiting to throw back these projectiles at him. Then we have this dude, which just comes down to you using the slowdown mechanic to get a good shot in his weak spot. It is meh as well. No comment on this one. Now we have this guy who absorbs the energy from these tube things, and I genuinely think this is the best fight in the game. It is fun, serves a decent challenge, and it's actually clear to what you have to do here, and overall is decent. I enjoyed it. Then we have Maledict, aka Dr. Betruger. Yeah, they left the story for the expansion. Why? Beats me. But this fight is alright, you just shoot at him a bunch and that's really it. Overall, the DLC is honestly better than the main game, which is pathetically sad. It does improve on things, but not by too much, so it at least adds something worthwhile. Also, yes, I know there is a second DLC called Lost Mission, but I'm sorry. I just could not care anymore. I did not play this one. From what I can gather, it really does not add anything to the game, so I'll pass. You can probably tell that I am getting tired of talking about this game, so let's finally wrap this up. After beating that underwhelming final fight and watching those credits roll, that is when I finally understood why I didn't even bother to complete this game in my first playthrough. Yeah, that's right. I didn't complete this game in my first playthrough. I completely skipped it. It clearly is not really a Doom game at all. It fails to capture the same adrenaline and feeling you'd get from playing the classic games. It tries to be its own thing, which is respectable, but I wouldn't have given it as much of a hard time in this review if it succeeded in this manner. But even then, the stuff it does on its own just falls flat and does not have much substance other than trying to provide a slow-paced, uninspired, bland horror-like shooter experience. I think there is much more to it than just being a bad Doom game. This game does some things well, but also does so much wrong. There was much more I wanted to talk about, like the existence of the sprint meter, for example, which I think is actually dumb, by the way, if you wanted to know. But then I realized that I am actually making a video for people to comfortably watch and not just writing this for no reason. So I think I will stop here and give this game a 5.5 out of 10. It is not per se bad, but it is nowhere near good. I wouldn't recommend it, but who knows? Maybe you guys will see something in this game that I didn't. Give it a shot, but do not expect anything special. Woo, alright, finally done with this one. Wow, I talked about this game for much longer than anticipated, but at last we have made it through. And now we for real actually have 2 more games to go this time. Next up we will be reviewing Doom 2016. I'm excited to get into this one, so I hope to see you all there. Sorry for the delay on this one. As some of you may know, I had a loss of progress on this one and some rendering issues. I lost a lot of it last night, but I trucked on and got it done just for you guys. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. The support on these videos have been great and I appreciate every single one of you. If you enjoyed it, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It means so much to me. Anyway, that's all I have, and see you guys next time.